Welcome to my PowerPoint on my most hated cards. We have to start with Death Knight and the Plague package. Not only is the Plague package just not fun to play with, I'm going to be so honest with you, but it also has negative implications for the rest of the game. So, since, Rise of Shadows, we have had really efficient ways to shuffle cards into your opponent's deck with bombs. Yes, bombs haven't been in standard for a while, but that doesn't really change the fact that it still was a found and true counter to Reno decks. We had bomb shuffling. Bomb shuffling was very interesting because there wasn't that many ways to shuffle bombs. There's only like 2 or 3 cards that could actually shuffle bombs in your opponent's deck. They didn't have that crazy of payoffs because you had like Blastmaster Boom, and that's kind of it for how many bombs you shuffled into your opponent's deck. And the bombs themselves were relatively strong. You know, they dealt 5 damage to your opponent. So when Blizzard decided to print Plagues, what? So Plagues go against all of those. There are numerous ways to put Plagues in your opponent's deck. You have 4 cards that can do it, and they put more Plagues in your opponent's deck. They all put a minimum of 2. Cavaldir and Down with the Ship put 2, Staff of the Primus puts 3, and then Helya puts 3. So they put way more Plagues into your opponent's deck. They are less powerful individually, but they have the best shuffle payoff card ever to ever exist. Nothing else comes close in Helya, because when Helya shuffles, it stays in your deck forever. Forever. They do not go away unless you destroy cards that have been shuffled into your deck. However, that actually wasn't that easy to do because there was 1 card in Standard that could do it in Steam Cleaner, and then they rotated Steam Cleaner and didn't put anything back. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, well, there was Steam Cleaner, right? Well, because of the way Helya works, if you just held a Plague card or 2, you would just play those, get more Plagues, and then, wow, Helya still kept it permanent. So your opponent would still have infinitely shuffled cards into their deck. That alone is very annoying. Don't get me wrong. That's incredibly annoying on its own. But that destroyed Highlander decks in like a very weird process to print Helya right before you decided a Highlander expansion was coming around the corner. So this was already a problem with Highlander decks, right? Then it became a problem with Reno Warrior just running duplicates. Reno Warrior would just run duplicates and then get the benefits of their Highlander cards anyway because they had so much card draw. So you have 2 confounding reasons that make it so, well, the duplicate restriction needs to have some changes, right? So they changed all Highlander cards from Sharded on the Badlands to be if your deck started with no duplicates, it will do its effect, which gets rid of shuffles as a weakness, most entirely due in part to Helya and the Plague Death Knight, and it removed being able to run it in a duplicate deck. That part is fine. You shouldn't be able to run those cards in duplicate decks to begin with, right? That's fine. The problem is that it should have said if your deck started with and has no duplicates, because why are bombs and like Beneath the Ground? Why are those cards getting punished for Helya? And don't try and be like, oh, that's not what they were thinking about. This is 100% what they were thinking about. There's no way that they didn't have this in their mind when they decided this, because if they wanted to not have to deal with it, they would have made it that way. Helya also specifically ranked as the #1 most hated card in a poll that I did for Death Knight. I did a poll for every class about the #1 most hated card. I don't remember some of them. But I mean, there's some really obvious ones. Like, I think Guff won for Druid, Helya won for Death Knight, Ice Block won for Mage, stuff like that. So there are some more, it's a lot of very obvious ones, but Helya just, people really, really despise these cards. I'm going to read them off because I understand some people might not know them. Distressed Cavaldir is a 2-mana, 3/2 undead with 2 unholy runes. With Death Rattle, shuffle 2 plagues into your opponent's deck. Helia is a 4-mana 4/4. Shuffle all 3 plagues in your opponent's deck. Plagues they draw this game are unending. It's 1 Unholy Rune, and it's legendary. Staff the Primus is a 2 Unholy Rune, 1-mana 1/3 weapon that reads, after your hero attacks, shuffle a random plague in your opponent's deck. And then Down with the Ship is 2-mana Shadow Spell, 1 Unholy Rune, deal 3 damage, shuffle 2 random plagues in your opponent's deck. Down with the Ship and another card from this package initially also had 1 Frost Rune. So you were supposed to play this as like a 2 Unholy 1 Frost deck. That was unbelievably terrible. It was actually like unbelievably bad, right? But then once it got buffed, really good. All the even cards saw play in even Death Knight and Wild. And in Wild, right, the restriction was necessary, right? This card is fine in Wild level power, like power level terms, right? Helia, it's a fine card for Wild. Yeah, it still turns off Reno decks forever, but Reno decks are really fucking strong in Wild. They're not that strong in Standard. Like, aside from, like, 1 or 2 in Standard, they just were not that strong. But, yeah. Let's move past this. I have so many cards to talk about. Then we have Demon Hunter. So, my one single feedback from when I was in Perils in Paradise Theory Crafting was that Pirate Demon Hunter would be too strong. That is the only thing I gave of any feedback. Pirate Demon Hunter would be too strong. And guess what? I know HS replay stats are not perfect. I know that, especially for Wild. Don't get me wrong. But if any fucking reason a deck in Wild has a 60% win rate, any reason, even if it's a low sample size, that's not normal. That is not normal. Like, I get it, right? That, you know, the Pirate Demon Hunters, whatever, you know, they're not that popular, right? It's not that popular. Not that many people use HS Replay, stuff like that, right? So the sample size is quite low. I understand that. But it is still a tier 1 deck. It's still one of the best decks in the game. And it abuses pirates. And I've said this so many times at this point, that pirates are completely unbalanced and nowhere close in terms of power level to any other tribe. Any single other tribe in the entire game. Pirates are so unbelievably better, it's not even close. And this is less of a case in Standard, do not get me wrong, yet Pirate Demon Hunter is still dominating Standard. Legend is just dominated by Pirate Demon Hunter. So, where do you go from here? Sigil Skydiving is a 2-mana Fel spell. At the start of your turn, summon 3 1/1 pirates with charge. So, you play Sigil on 2. Your opponent literally cannot do anything. There is nothing your opponent can do. They cannot stop the Sigil from going off in any way. So, you will always get 3 1/1s with charge on your turn 3 if you play this card. Then, you have Hosen Roughhouser, which is a 3-mana 2/4 pirate. Whenever another friendly pirate attacks, give it +1/+1. So you are guaranteed to always have this combo go off, as long as you have the cards. It's not like any other kind of like powerful 2-turn combo, where like sometimes your opponent can disrupt it, right? Like if you play, I mean, a great example is just Ship's Cannon. Ship's Cannon's one of those cards that you can like try and play on turn 2 and then play a lot of pirates on turn 3. But your opponent could just kill the Ship's Cannon, right? And that's the counterplay. Your opponent could just kill the minion. But you cannot do that against this combo. So your opponent is getting 8, 10 in stats on turn 3 that has charge to go face for 6 damage. That also, if they stuck a Treasure Distributor on turn 1, does even more damage. In Wild, if you play Treasure Distributor on 1, hit a Parachute Brigand and Patches on turn 1, your opponent does not clear those 3 minions on turn 2, you play Sigil Skydiving, then on turn 3 you play Hosen Roughhouser, that is exactly 30 damage on turn 3. Exactly 30 damage, as long as you are attacking and playing your turns correctly. What the actual fuck is Blizzard doing? Some classes cannot play the game right now because they cannot do anything about this. They cannot stop this. How is that fair for the game? Like, I'm being so 100% serious. How is that fair? In any way, shape, or form? I mean, like, what more can I say? Like, this is just like a colossal fuck up that's on the scale of like pack and null. Like, it has to be. There's just no fucking explanation. It's so terrible. Then we get to Druid. So you might be noticing, if you're watching, people that aren't watching but just listening, I'm gonna paint you a picture. You are the Druid class. You have so much card draw, so much. You have better card draw than like every class but like 3. You have better armor gain than every class but 1. So effectively, you have better health gain and max health gain than all class but 1. You have the best ramp in the game because, obviously, I mean, that's what Druid does. I won't complain about that. That's Druid's one thing. So you have top tier of everything, right? You have incredible mana cheat, and you have so many ways to tutor specifically cheap cards to continue your combos, okay? I just described like every Druid combo that's ever existed. However, the 2 cards on the screen are not Druid cards. They're neutral cards. You heard me, right? So let's start with Gadgetzan Auctioneer. So this card was literally banned from Standard because of Druid. It was nerfed and banned from Standard. It is one of the only cards to ever be completely removed from the core set before the core set rotates. I can't think of any other card aside from Gadgetzan Auctioneer, actually, now that I think about it. So it was straight up banned from Standard. It just was. And nerfed at the same time. However, the nerf didn't matter because in Wild, you play Barnes. Barnes does a lot of things. It gets around like zombies or explosive runes or snipe. It's cheaper than Gadgetzan Auctioneer by 2 mana. And, well, it just gets the Auctioneer out of your deck. So you can cycle through your entire deck on the same turn that you play Barnes, because Druid has a lot of ways to gain mana instantly. You have things like your Floop's Forbiddenest Gloop, where you could just play a lot of tokens and then kill those off. You have Funnel Cake, which is the 1 mana spell from Festival of Legends, which is restore 3 health to a minion and 2 adjacent minions. If they are overhealed, refresh 1 mana crystal. So it's spend 1 mana to get 3 back. And pick your fucking poison, right? You could play it with Togwaggle and then make it so your opponent has no cards in their deck, and then play Solar Eclipse and Naturalize to kill them. That was the best way to do it for a little while. Then Tony, King of Piracy came out, and you did the same thing, but Tony was significantly cheaper than Togwaggle. And guess what? Tony was way too fucking strong and got banned from... it got banned because of that. And then, you know, it also was too strong in Standard and then got nerfed and you know, non-banned, but still, Tony was way too strong. Or, now, you can play it with spell damage. You can use the location, Magical Dollhouse, which is just, when you trigger it, you get +1 spell damage for the turn. Then there's a way to do it where you cycle through your entire deck, and you can deal, I think it's 34 damage to your opponent's face, on like turn 4 or 5, depending on if you high roll. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's really, really disgusting. It's not the best disgusting Druid deck, though, because the best disgusting Druid deck is Puppet Master Dorian. Dorian is a 4-mana 2/6. After you draw a minion, get a 1/1 copy of it that costs 1. We live in a world where Druid has Aviana, Eonar, and infinite mana after that happens. So, what has come out of that is that you play Aviana, Eonar, you play Dorian, then you play... Juicy Psych Melon. So your 7 mana card is Lorthamar Theron, which, if you don't know what that does, it is a 7 mana 7/7 with Battlecry, double the attack and health of minions in your deck. So you do that. You do it twice because you get 2 copies of Lorthamar that cost 1. Your 8 cost is Califero. Califero is an elemental. I don't remember its stats. It's 8 mana elemental that has Battlecry, draw a minion, transform all other minions into a copy of that. We'll get back to that. Then you have Aviana and Eonar. So you play Aviana Eonar. You'll get a 1 mana Eonar, refresh your mana, play Aviana, play Eonar again, play out all your cards, right? So then you have a full board. You play Califero. You've just quadrupled the attack and health of minions in your deck. So what do? You then play Califero, and it draws either Reckless Rocketeer, which is a 6 mana... Oh god, it's like a 6/2... I don't remember the stat. It's a 6 mana charge minion that, when quadrupled, and you have a full board of them, will kill your opponent. Or you do it with Leroy, which, I mean, Leroy is a 5 mana 6/2, I know that for sure. And it has charge, and it will transform all your minions into a, what is that, 12, 24 attack minion that has charge. All of your board becomes 24 attack minions that have charge. And you can rip Puppet Master Dorian off of Oaken summons. Yup. Fucking yup. I don't know what to say about Druid anymore. I think that Blizzard has utterly ruined the game by continuing to push these disgusting, absolutely degenerate combos in Druid. Like, I don't know what to say anymore, because these combos just did not exist like 3-4 years ago. They just didn't, right? In Wild. And there's nothing more that you can say. Even if these cards existed, like Auctioneer and Barnes, these combos just really didn't exist. There might have been, like, different kinds of degenerate combos, right? I'm not going to say there weren't, but you should not be dying on turn 4. You just shouldn't be dying on turn 4 to combo decks. I'm sorry. It just shouldn't happen. Okay? It shouldn't happen. No combo deck should be allowed to do 30 damage on turn 4. I'm sorry. Turn 6, yeah, that's fine. Maybe turn 5 if you high roll and you're like on the coin, right? But turn 3 with Dorian. It is possible. It is possible to lose on turn fucking 3 because of Dorian. How? How can anyone defend that? How? Then we have Hunter. So, although Stranglethorn Heart is a beautiful card, it genuinely is beautiful. Look at this. Let's take a moment to look at this card art. I put it right there. It's beautiful. You see Mukla, he's strumming away on his guitar. He's got animals singing Kumbaya on a sunset. He's in, like, the vines of a tree. It's beautiful. I hate these cards. I fucking hate these cards. I hate Big Beast Hunter. I hate it so much. Why the fuck have I been told that my class is this hyper aggro face class for years and years and years, and then for the last, like, 3 full years, we have only printed Big Beast Hunter fucking support? We'll print some other dog shit like Arcane Hunter, which is, you know, terrible until you print a really overpowered card for it. Or we'll print Hand Buff Hunter, which is terrible until you print a really overpowered card for it. So, what the fuck? It's not, Big Beast Hunter just fundamentally isn't fun to play. I hate it. I hate it so goddamn much. It's slow, it's inconsistent, it's tied to having a absurdly powerful payoff card, and guess what? It has that payoff card right now, but it's not good enough. Is it a strong payoff card? Yes, it is. It is a strong payoff card. But to call Big Beast Hunter a good deck right now is wrong. Fundamentally wrong. To call Egg Hunter a good deck right now, it's fine. It's not that good, all things considered, but I don't want it to be good. I don't want it to be good. Every time Big Beast Hunter is good, Hunter gets a lot of nerfs to its early game cards to try and compensate. So, randomly, we just get fucking nerfs to, like, aggro decks for actually no fucking reason. And I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to play my fucking aggro class when they push all this shit for these slow decks and then nerf my fucking fast cards? Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't like King Plush. King Plush is a 9 mana 6/6 beast with charge. Battlecry, return all minions with less attack than this to your owner's hand. It's boring. It's really not fun to use. It kind of counter synergizes with Egg Hunter a little bit, because, like, if you hit plushes instead of, like, Sasquatchs, well, you're just fucked, right? Because Sasquatch is, like, the really strong beast, but you don't have another good beast, like, actually good beast, so King Plush has to be run, and it fucks your deck up, because you'll shuffle your egg back into your deck if you actually play the King Plush, which is not something you want to do. Stranglethorn Heart is an 8 mana spell with tradable that has resurrect all friendly beasts that cost 5 or more. It's supposed to synergize with these decks, right? But it is a legendary spell to only give you, like, 1 board back. Yeah, I guess technically you can do it twice because of Sasquatch, but... So, in Wild, you can get a Tundra Rhino, right? So you spend all this time playing all these, like, as many, like, 5 cost beasts as you can, and then you play Tundra Rhino so that you can play Heart and it actually kills your opponent. But in Standard, you play Heart and it's like, okay, well, if I'm already playing against a deck that I want to be playing Stranglethorn Heart against, they probably can still clear my board. So it doesn't feel that good to play. Banjosaur is like actually dog shit as a card because it doesn't even make the cut in like Egg Hunter, Big Beast Hunter. It doesn't even make the fucking cut. It is such a dog shit card. 10 mana, 5/6 beast, rush. Whenever this attacks, draw a beast and gain its stats. You know when this card has been its strongest? Ever. The strongest this card has ever been in Standard was because you can get it off of Sunset Volley as like a very consistent option, and it would also draw your Cephalopods. I'm not fucking joking. That is the best use case of this card as a summoned option from a mage spell. What? And then we have Mr. Mukla himself. I fucking hate this card. It is so bad. On my fucking life, if you, like, when this card came out, people try to jam it into every Hunter deck there was. Because they look at it, and it's a 6 mana 10/10 beast with Rush. Which, you know, on its own sounds pretty interesting. The issue is in Wild, it's a 6 mana 10/10 with Rush. How the fuck do you ever play that card? How do you play this card against Pirate Rogue? How do you play this card against Shadow Priest? How do you play this card against Reno Priest? You can't play this card. It also fills your opponent's hand with bananas, which, you know, is a little stronger in Standard. It actually is. But again, in Wild, when you have Renathal, your opponent burning one card is not as useful as you would think. Yeah, sometimes you'll hit that like 1 in 40, and you'll hit like their fucking Raza or their Shudderwock or their I don't know, their Astalor or their Brand Bronzebeard, right? Something like that, right? The 1 in 40 chance that you hit that, it's pretty decent. It is. But if you don't, well, you just gave your opponent a bunch of bananas. And, you know, for most classes, it's not that important that you gave them bananas. Like, Druid doesn't care that much. Yeah, they can push a little more damage. Mage probably doesn't care that much unless they're playing Quest, and which you just gave them a bunch of free spells and you lost the game. Wait a minute. And most egregiously is Priest. So, Shadow Priest loved it because you just gave them a bunch of free damage. Reno Priest loves it because you just gave them a bunch of free damage. At what cost? Playing a 6 mana 10/10 that can kill a 1/3 and then just die the next turn anyway? There's just, and that doesn't even begin to talk about how people were trying to force this into fucking Beast Hunter. Like actual, like full aggro Beast Hunter. They're trying to force this fucking card in. It was dog shit. Like actually dog shit. And I'm sitting here saying, hey, this card's not very good to everyone I can. And people are like, unbelievably fucking coping with this card. And guess what? Guess what? It is a terrible card. Whoever could have guessed that? Ever in their lives could have guessed that Mr. Mukla would be a bad card. I want to point out that I pulled regular Mukla, Golden Mukla, and Signature Mukla all together in my pre-order packs and bundles that I got on day 1 of the expansion as well. All fucking 3 of them I pulled. God, dude, I hate this card. I hate Mukla so much.
Ice block.
Okay, Paladin. So, I'm going to be so real for a moment. Like, actually, as real as I possibly can be for a moment. If Radar Detector was a custom Hearthstone card that some Joe Schmo had, like, created, it would be considered a terribly designed card. Because, let's read it together. 2 mana. Scan the bottom 5 cards of your deck. It doesn't really tell us what scan is, so we don't really know what that means. It doesn't, like, make a reference to being Dredge, because, well, Dredge is a part of this expansion, which would make sense. So, it says scan, which doesn't really tell us what it means. Draw any mechs found this way, then shuffle your deck. So, typically, Hearthstone cards do not mention shuffling your deck. They don't have that worded into them, as like in effects, right? So that's 2 things that seem off about this card, on top of the fact that it's 2 mana draw 5 fucking minions. 2 mana draw 5 mechs, specifically. 2 mana draw 5 of 1 tribe, and this 1 tribe has 2 very, very powerful cards that will discount your entire hand. In Galvanizer, 2 mana 1/2 mech, Battle Cry, reduce the cost of mechs in your hand. And Mech Warper, at the time, 2 mana 2/3, your mechs cost 1 less, it was a mech as well. Now it's 4 mana 4/4. So, let me paint you a picture. You play Radar Detector on turn 2. You draw 5 cards because you only had, what, 4 cards in your entire deck that weren't mechs? 2 Radar Detectors, maybe a Crystology, and then, or maybe 2 Crystologies, and then you had the 3 mana 3/1 draw a spell, it costs 0 this turn. So it probably didn't even have those Crystologies, right? You probably had genuinely only 4 cards in your entire deck that weren't mechs. So you were consistently drawing at least 4 cards, right? Then you would play Galvanizer, which would also make your Mech Warper cost 1. So you could play Galvanizer and Mech Warper together on turn 3, and your entire hand costs 2 less. Most of the cards in your deck cost 2 or less. So then you just dump your entire hand, and then you somehow hit that 3-drop, that I don't remember what its name is, and then you draw Radar Detector again, and you do it all again. And then, to top it all off, you had a lot of mechs that would buff each other and buff themselves when more and more mechs were played, so they synergized insanely well together. And you had Bubblebot. And Bubblebot would give all of your minions Taunt and Divine Shield as mechs. So, not only was the deck very strong individually, it had clear defined hard counters. It would hard counter Questline Druid, which was really crazy because Questline Druid at one point, you know, even the same Questline Druid was like the best deck in the game. And it would hard counter Even Warrior, which again, Even Warrior was a really powerful control deck at the time. So it had really strong matchups just by being a strong deck, and then it had hard counter matchups. Holy shit, was this degenerate. I don't know where else to begin, aside from talking about Radar Detector being like one of the worst design cards ever. Like, I don't know who you... I think if you ask most people their thoughts on Radar Detector, they will agree that it's horribly designed. Like, especially people that play Wild. It's so bad. It's so bad. It was strong in Standard, too, if I remember correctly. Like, but in Standard, you know, you didn't have a 26-card mech deck. I guess, technically, it would be... You also, like, because you have the Radar Detector in hand, you have even likelier odds to draw more mechs. It's just so fucking stupid. Like... How do they wake up in the morning, make a card like this, and then be like, the power creep in this game has gotten too crazy lately. What do I do to balance? Like, what the fuck? I love free cards! I love free cards! I love free cards! I love free cards! Oh my god, I love free cards! We're talking about Rogue, everybody. Woo, yeah, Rogue. I love when you print a random ass rare card in a mini set that all it does is make the Wild format worse. It has no possible potential chance of ever being playable at Standard. Twisted Pack is a dog shit card. If Wild Paw Null didn't exist, Twisted Pack would be a dog shit pack filler card. But because Wild Paw Null happens to exist, it was 5 mana, now it's 6 because it was nerfed. 5 mana 3/5 with Rush, costs 1 less for each non-rogue class card added to your hand. Twisted Pack is 1 mana, add 5 cards from other classes to your hand. They are temporary. If you don't know, temporary means they discard at the end of the turn. That's technically a new keyword they kind of put in because of the packs, but whatever. Well, it's not that important. So, you just play a 1 mana fucking spell, which also discounts your Arcane Giants, I want to point out. And then you have a 0 mana 3/5 with Rush. Or you have 2 of them. Or you also have a 0 mana 3/3 weapon. And you have Breakdance. I love Breakdance, bro. Oh, I love Breakdance. I'm gonna fucking kill someone, bro. So Arcane Giant, 12 mana, 8/8, costs 1 less for each spell you played this game. You could very consistently play Arcane Giants on turn 3, more so turn 4. The turn 3 did happen, but it's more so turn 4, you would be playing Arcane Giants, right? So you would have 1, maybe 2, 0 mana 8/8s. Then Blizzard, in their infinite wisdom, they printed this card in Festival of Legends, which instantly was strong. Instantly it was strong. Not Arcane Giant, Breakdance. 1 mana shadow spell, return a friendly minion to your hand, summon a Dancer with its stats and Rush. So you play an Arcane Giant, you break dance it, you get a 1 mana 8/8, and then you play your Arcane Giant again, so you have 1 mana 16/16, 8/8 of which has Rush. If you couldn't guess, you've never been here, or you've just, like, never played the game ever before, which, you know, I don't know why you're watching, but whatever. Yeah, that was obscenely broken. Obscenely overpowered. Absolutely and utterly warped the entire meta of the game around it to some levels that we've rarely ever seen, right? Your deck had to deal with Miracle Rogue in some way, no matter what. Because it was not only very popular, it was, like, I think the second most played deck in the game. Most decks are second most played, even if they're top tier, because Reno Priest is just so popular. People love Reno Priest. But it was, like, the second most popular deck in the game, so you had to tech for it. And even if you did tech for it, you still weren't consistently going to win the game. You just weren't. Because in Wild, tech cards are good, don't get me wrong, because they are necessary, they're good. But they're not consistent at all. Like, if you're playing a 40 card deck, how the fuck are you getting your disruption consistently? You're just not. So the deck would just beat its counters. It just beat its counters relatively consistently. Not all the time. It still, like, had negative win rates into these decks, but it was enough of a percentage that it's like, what the fuck do you do? Because you still just lost sometimes. You could be playing ultra teched out decks that, like, that did have positive win rates into a Miracle Rogue, like a Reno Priest or a Reno Shaman, and just not draw them, and you still fucking lost. Like, unreal. So unbelievably broken this deck was. I hate Miracle Rogue. I hate it. I hate it. Like, I'm hissing. I hate it. Then we have Shaman. So, if you've noticed a trend between a lot of these, it comes down to being too efficient at building stats on board early on in the game. Too much mana cheat, too much card draw, and having an additional effect of either destroying your board or causing some form of disruption, right? That's been most of the things I've talked about so far. So what if I told you that Shaman had all of these? Scargill was originally a 4 mana, 4/4, a Murloc that reads, your Murlocs cost 1. So it was Murloc Aviana. We already know Aviana is a 9 mana card, so to put it on a 4 mana card, even if it has a condition, is going to be strong. It just is. So you would play Scargill, then you could play Clownfish, which would cost 1, but because of its effect, it is a 3 mana 3/2 Murloc. Battlecry, your next 2 Murlocs cost 2 less. Scargill is bugged, it has to be a bug, where it does not recognize that it still says your Murlocs cost 1. So Clownfish would make them cost 0. You could then play Gorlock Ravager to draw Murlocs from your deck. You could play more Clownfish to reduce by more. You could just have mana to play more Murlocs, etc. You would draw up to 6 Murlocs because of 2 Gorlocks. You would play Firemancer Flurgle and... Gorlock is... I should have read Gorlock. Gorlock is a 5 mana 4/3 Murloc. Battlecry, draw 3 Murlocs. Then you could play Firemancer Flurgle, which at the time was 2 mana. Now it's 4 mana. 2/3 Murloc. After you play Murloc, deal 1 damage to all enemies. And then you could play Toxfin on it. 1 mana, 1/2 Murloc. Battlecry, give a friendly Murloc poisonous. So it would destroy your entire board. Your opponent would build a board. They would draw 6 cards. They would then play something like Mutanus the Devourer, which could eat a combo piece from your hand, or just anything. Mutanus is a 7 mana 4/4 Murloc. Eat a minion in your opponent's hand, gain its stats. It means it just rips it from your hand and then destroys it. So your opponent would build a giant board, destroy your whole board, draw a million cards, steal cards from your hand, and win the game. Because that is unbelievably gigantic tempo. Unbelievable tempo that you almost never ever see from a deck. Even like tempo-based decks do not do things that are that powerful. And this was a slow combo deck that just wanted to draw all its combo pieces and thin its deck to draw its combo pieces. Yup. Yeah, I don't know what more to say. It also ran Twin Fin Twin, which was a 3-mana 2/1 Murloc with Rush, Battlecry, summon a copy of this. That card was not that strong, don't get me wrong. It was like a fine option as a Murloc. You also would run Finley as well, but I don't want to put Finley on the slide because I don't dislike Finley. The reason I'm talking about Fin Twin, though, is it's Battlecry. It also was a combo piece for your Shudderwock. This unbelievably hard carried Shudderwock Shaman, especially due to the fact that Shudderwock Shaman was not good after it was nerfed. It wasn't playable, really. I mean, it was like fine, right? It's Shudderwock Shaman, it's always like a fine deck, but it went from the best deck in the game to not that great after this received 2 nerfs. Scargill went up 1 mana, and Firemancer Flurgle went up 2 mana. And Shudderwock Shaman fell from grace. Obviously, you know, when Reno Lone Ranger was printed, and you could, you know, repeat Renos with your Shudderwock, it obviously became really strong again, but that's different. Yeah, I don't know where to begin. If you did not play against this, count your fucking lucky stars. Like, actually, dude, this was so unbelievably toxic, and just, what were you supposed to do? You had to either play like a hyper aggro deck, which were significantly worse during March of the Lich King, so they didn't really like consistently kill your opponent, or you just lost. You just lost. Warlock. There are so many potential options that I could have gone for with Warlock. I could talk about the Demon Seed, even though I'm not that upset by it. I'm more upset by the D6 Warlock that existed in Standard at one point than the Demon Seed itself. I could talk about Dark Glare. I could talk about, like, Snip Snap. I could talk about Darkest Hour. But no, I have to talk about Discard Warlock. Let me paint you a picture. We are in Wild. It is Nathria. So Tome Tampering comes out. Tome Tampering was 3 mana spell, discard your entire hand, shuffle 1-cost copies of it into your deck. You could play that with Malchezaar's Imp, and it was fine. It wasn't that great, all things considered. It was fine. Then we go to March of the Lich King. We print Soul Barrage, which is a 5-mana shadow spell. When you play this, or when you play or discard this, deal 6 damage randomly split amongst all enemies. So we print Soul Barrage. Because Soul Barrage is really strong, you then started to be able to play it with Tome Tampering. And then you would deal damage to your opponent, draw a million cards, and you would do that again, and again, and again. And you would keep discounting your Soul Barrages, and because of other, like, powerful discard cards, you would win the game. So they banned Tome Tampering. That's 1 on the list of cards changed because of Soul Barrage. Then, fast forward to right after that, we had the same kind of thing, but it was with Cataclysm. You would run Soul Barrages, you would run Fist of Jaraxxus, you would run Grave Defiler to copy your Fist of Jaraxxus. Soul Barrage would be the highest cost spell in your, card in your deck, so you would double it with your Expired Merchants. If you don't know, Expired Merchant is a 2-mana 2/1 with Battlecry, discard your highest cost card, Death Rattle, return 2 copies of your hand, and Cataclysm was 4 mana, discard your whole hand, destroy all minions. So it would discard all of your cards, and then it would deal a shitload of damage because of all the Fist of Jaraxxus and all the Soul Barrages. So you would instantly OTK your opponent on, like, turn 4 in a lot of games. Like, genuinely, you would actually just OTK your opponent turn 4. So it did everything. Because if you had Malchezaar's Imp and Cataclysm, you'd draw a million cards. It would deal lethal damage to your opponent. It would clear their board. It did everything. So Cataclysm got nerfed to 5 mana, discard 2 cards, destroy all minions, which is a part 2 for the nerfs. Then they announced Caverns of Time, and Caverns of Time came along with a lot of buffs. 2 of those buffs were to Tiny Knight of Evil and Dark Bargain. Dark Bargain became 3 mana, discard 2 cards, destroy 2 random enemy minions. And Tiny Knight of Evil was 2 mana, 3/2, gain +2/+2 for every card you discard. So, not only were those 2 cards, but those 2 cards did become broken. Don't get me wrong, they were really broken. But they wouldn't have been as broken without, say it with me, Soul Barrage. Because what would happen is, you would play your Tiny Knight on 2, you would play Dark Bargain on 3, you would destroy your opponent's board, because they probably only had 2 minions by turn 3, let's be real here. You would get a 7/6 Tiny Knight of Evil, and then you would discard a Soul Barrage, or maybe even 2, and you'd also deal 6 damage to your opponent's face, or 12 if you discarded 2. On turn 3. I'm getting fucking lightheaded here, man. Like, it's just... Why? Why? Why, Blizzard, why? Of course, those cards did get nerfed, but not before they introduced Chamber of Vasidius. Chamber of Vasidius was a 2-mana, 3 durability location that reads, look at 3 cards in your hand, choose 1 to discard, draw 2 cards. Chamber of Vasidius, I hate that card more than Soul Barrage, actually. Chamber was so strong that at one point it had a over 90% win rate in your mulligan. Do you know how unbelievably overpowered a card has to be to have a above 90% win rate in your mulligan? Yeah. That's unreal. That's unreal. I don't think a card has ever even approached a win rate that high. Ever. I don't think Sigil Skydiving has even close to that high of win rate. And you saw the win rate that Demon Hunter has right now. Yeah, so Chamber obviously got nerfed to 3 mana and 2 durability. Tiny Knight was nerfed to +2/+1, and Dark Bargain was nerfed to 4 mana. I can't, within good faith, say that all 3 of those nerfs were because of Soul Barrage. It's definitely they're all tied together. Those 3 nerfs are all tied together. All 4 of the cards are way too strong, and they were way too strong together, right? Soul Barrage, though, it took place in the nerfs and ban of 5 cards, and then Tome Tampering came back at 6 mana, so the nerfs of 5 cards. I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna be so honest with you. We have Malchezaar's Imp, which is, I mean, it's a well-known card. It's a 1-mana, 1/3 demon. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. It's just too strong. I mean, like, it's not as egregious as, like, blowing you up on turn 3, but it is just too strong as a card. Draws you way too many cards. And then now we have Clumsy Steward, which is a 3-mana, 2/4. After any card is drawn, make it temporary. Just got a phone call. Okay. So you play it with Malchezaar's Imp. You can play Plot Twist with it, which is 2 mana, shuffle all cards in your hand into your deck, then draw them any cards. And then you can make your whole hand discard, which is obviously really good. We've already talked about how discarding your whole hand is really good. And it makes any card your opponents draw also become temporary. So they discard at the end of their turn, which is really strong. Lastly, oh, thank God, lastly, I'm not doing neutral cards. I just can't. It's too many. There's too many. We have Even Warrior. Even Warrior. So at the time, Trial by Fire and Odin were 6 and 7 mana, or 6 and 8 mana instead of 7 and 9 mana. You would be able to, you had your even, so you could hero power to gain 2 armor on turn 1, like 3, 5, etc. very consistently to gain a lot of armor throughout the game. This was one of, if not the only true control decks that we have had in Wild in the last few years. The thing is, though, because it's a viable Wild control deck, that obviously means it has a real combo, which is Odin, Pride and Designate. Odin was 8 mana, 8/8, battlecry for the rest of the game. After your hero gains armor, they gain that much attack for your turn. It's obviously nerfed to 9 mana, but... So, when we talk about control decks in Hearthstone, a lot of the times, they are just slow combo decks, right? They don't run that good of removal, and they have, like, some kind of combo that wins the game, right? Even Warrior had great removal. Some of the best removal ever. Amazing healing because of the armor and the 1-mana hero power, and then it had Odin on top of that. So a lot of these, like, slow, quote-unquote control decks aren't really control decks. They're really not that good into aggro, and that's, you know, why people don't like them, because they don't give cards that beat aggro for these control decks. So people are like, oh, my aggro deck, or my control deck loses to aggro. Okay, well, that makes it not a control deck, right? But Even Warrior was a tried and true control deck. It ran Gen Greymane, 6 mana, 6/5, start a game. If your deck has only even cost cards, starting hero power cost 1, so you get the 1-mana hero power. It would run things like Frozen Buckler, which are 2 mana, gain 10 armor at the start of your next turn, lose 5 armor. So that would be 2 mana, gain 10 armor, deal 10 damage to your opponent's hero. Trial by Fire, 6 mana, fire spell, summon 5, 1/1 Valkyr with Rush. When one dies, give the others +1/+1, and stuff like that, right? So it was really strong into aggro decks. It still wasn't that great into other combo decks because, well, the combo was slower, but it still could win against other slow decks. So it was the perfect control deck. It actually ran control tools, it had enough card draw to make itself work, and it had a win condition. This is what people want when they talk about control decks being playable in the game. But it's not what they think they want. You know what I mean? They think they want these grinder decks that have no win conditions, but those can't work anymore. They cannot exist in the game anymore. So Odin really did exactly what it was supposed to. Oh boy. Okay, this one was really long, so I'm sorry if I lost some energy going at the end. It's just when you talk about things that like make you annoyed, it takes a lot of energy out of you, and I had to go in depth. I had to explain why I hate these things. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me anything down below. Do you dislike any of these cards? Do you like any of these cards? What's wrong with you if you do? Tell me your exact mental illness. Tell me your exact diagnosis from your doctor. I need to know why, actually. Don't do that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends are